I did it. I went to the memorial yesterday, and it was actually more interesting than I thought it was going to be for a variety of reasons. And it gave me a lot of thoughts and emotions that I wasn't actually expecting. So, yeah, this is going to be a video a little more laid back, almost podcast style. So we're just going to go one take, no goofy edits or anything like that, and just see how it goes. So, don't forget to drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the memorial. So, the memorial. I didn't take any pictures or videos, so that was the one thing I was thinking. I just was trying to be minimally disruptive in principle. I didn't want to be a nuisance to anyone. I didn't want to interfere with anyone because, it's their special time, the most important day of the year for them, and they're worshiping. I have to burp, but now it's kind of going away. That didn't go very well. Anyway, so I didn't want to get up and stand up and start talking about CSA and stuff like that. Not my style per se. I know other people think that that's effective, and to each their own. That's totally, that's up to you. But yeah, for me, I was just trying, especially because I was going there with the people that are studying with me, trying to be as respectful as possible. Now, I absolutely wore the most ridiculous jacket I could. I think I tweeted it once before, a picture of it, but I have a white and brown herringbone jacket that absolutely you will stand out, especially in any crowd that you're in. But if you're in a crowd of Jehovah's Witnesses, all eyes will be on you as soon as you walk in the door. And, tan boots with pink laces, the whole 9 yards. So, but I did wear a mask. So for anyone that was thinking, oh, people are going to recognize you, I did wear a mask, so that way my face would be covered, and a hat. So even if someone did recognize me, it would be really, really difficult. And there were, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 people that I was like, oh boy, I gotta make sure I avoid them, because they will absolutely know who I am if, someone introduced me. Oh, look, this is Wally. Or, oh, what's your name? And so I just was trying to strategically avoid a certain amount of people, or 5 people specifically, because they would have recognized me and it would have caused a real hootenanny. But the lead up to it, I would say I was kind of torn, because I actually regretted saying to everyone that I was going to be going to the memorial, because I did not want to go. I just was I feel like it's going to be boring. I feel like it'll be a waste of time. But I have to say I'm glad that I did, because it gave me a better understanding of, or maybe even reminded me of, what it's like to be someone that is regularly attending the Kingdom Hall and knows that it's all a bunch of hooey. And that is something that maybe I think at some point in the last couple years, I've lost that compassion for. And that, I don't really know how can I describe it. I mean, obviously, if you guys know my story, I, for a few months, was going, still, pioneering, giving talks, all that stuff, while knowing it was all a bunch of lunacy. And I was very compassionate for people that were in a similar situation. And then I've been out for so long that in the last 5 years, the only, meeting or Kingdom Hall that I've been to was at my grandmother's memorial. And at my grandmother's memorial, it absolutely was horrible. I hated the feeling of, people knowing who I was. Just everyone staring at you, basically. You roll in there and you are the talk of the town. Everyone's whispering about you, and you kind of know this, and they're thinking about you, and they're worried about you, and they're evil satanic person. And it just doesn't feel good when you're surrounded by all of these people that, once called you their friends and told you that they loved you and that they would do anything for you. And that at one point in time, you just said, But is it really so? You pulled the old Genesis 3 on them. Is it really so? And they said, I can't talk to you anymore for the crime of asking a question. And it feels so horrible. It's demoralizing. It's demeaning. It makes you just really, I don't know. It really messes with your head. And my experience yesterday was completely different. And the difference was wearing a mask. Wearing a mask and no one knew who I was. Basically hiding my authentic self from those Jehovah's Witnesses was the difference between me having actual good time. I thought it was fun and entertaining going to the memorial yesterday. And I just contrast that with, those months that I was a PMO witness and then going to my grandma's memorial with yesterday going to the memorial wearing a mask. And it almost is poetic in a sense, because to be a Jehovah's Witness is to wear a mask. It's to hide yourself. It's to put a false front forward and saying, no, I don't want anyone to see the real me. Shoutouts to The Who. I don't want anyone to know the authentic Wally. And so, as a Jehovah's Witness, what did we all do? We all put on the new personality. They even have it like in their lore. Put on the new personality, right? And it was so strange because when I put on a mask again to hide who I was again completely comfortable around Jehovah's Witnesses. And yet when I went as my authentic self, it was absolute hell. And to me, it really illustrated just what it is to be a Jehovah's Witness. It's just to wear a mask. And as soon as people know who you are, they don't want to be your friends or your family anymore. They just want to reject you and shun you. It was really crazy. So anyway, I just wanted to at least talk about that because I thought, wow, what a perfect poetry that happened. It was symbolic in certain ways. But anyway, I sort of digress here. So I rolled up. I just was trying to be Wally through and through, driving with the windows down, playing loud music as I rocked up to the Kingdom Hall. I do have to say, there is one hilarious aspect that I forgot about, and that is parking attendants. Parking attendants are some of, it's completely useless. It's not necessary. So when I rocked up, there was about, 8 dudes, all my Bible study person. He was there. I should just give him a fake name. I think we did in one of those streams, but unfortunately I can't access those streams, so who knows. But anyway, he was one of the people there as well. And, he recognized my car as well, because the last time he saw me, I was outside washing the car. Anyway, so when I rocked up, just casual as could be, no big deal. I still had this slight nervousness, not quite sure how things are going to go. But anyway, so yeah, got out of the car, put on my jacket, put on my scarf, put on my mask and everything. And I walked through the front door and there was 2 more dudes standing at the front door. So you have 8 guys in the parking lot and then 2 guys at the front door, just greeting people. And I was like, crap, it's someone that I knew before. It was someone that my Bible conductor guy brought to the door. I think I told you guys last time. And I was like, oh no, he would recognize me given a sufficient amount of time or talking to me. So I just blew by him, just pretended like he didn't exist or anything. And I have to say, walking into a Kingdom Hall, when you are sort of this masked person, you feel almost like a Batman, no one knows who you are. I just found it funny to just be back. It just started making me laugh. I was like, this is all so goofy. This is all so silly. And this is all so pointless. And then after maybe 2 or 3 minutes of me laughing, everything completely switched. And I got really sad. Just how fake everyone is. And, going back to everyone's wearing a mask. I just was really sad for everyone there that all of this isn't real. You're not being yourself. You're just putting on this fake front so that way you're just more palatable to other people. I don't know. It was really, really sad. But I sort of shook myself out of that mindset and was just like, okay, well, I'll go. I met, the guy that studies with me. And then I found his wife inside. So a couple people are like, oh, hi, my name's so-and-so. Who are you? Did someone invite you? And so I gave them, their names. Like, oh, I know them. And I actually trolled one person because they were like, oh, man, I can't remember her husband's name. And I just thought, wow, you guys go to the same congregation and you don't even know what her husband was, but she was standing like literally 2 rows of seats in front of us, and I was just pretending like I didn't, recognize her. Like, man, I don't know where she is. I can't find her. And she's like looking around for her, and she's standing right in front of her. And I'm just like, this is what it is to be a Jehovah's Witness. You're just completely clueless to the world around you. I'm like, she's standing right in front of us. But I just thought it was pretty funny. But after a bit, and she seemed kind of confused, I was like, okay, I'll let her down easy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. She's standing right in front of us. But anyway, we had a good laugh about it. But I actually didn't know her, but I knew her husband. So when the lady that I was kind of trolling, brought her husband, I was like, oh, hopefully he doesn't recognize me, but he didn't. So it was totally fine. So I tried to show up early because I didn't want to stay very late, and I knew I wanted to talk to people. So I showed up like maybe 30 minutes early. And I stood with the wife of my Bible study conductor. I mean, I guess they both kind of come equally, but anyway. And I just was like, okay, I don't know what to do. And she was acting super awkward. It was almost like because they don't act like Jehovah's Witnesses when they come over. They act like normal people. And it was awkward because I was like, why are you guys like being sort of aloof and different? Is it because you don't want to like act authentic, or maybe they know I'm just like going to ask a lot of questions and, maybe they were worried about me because in a Jehovah's Witness, like normal Jehovah's Witness situation, I would be a real problem because all they know is I ask a lot of questions and I know a lot about the Bible and ancient history. So it was kind of funny. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to relieve both of our pains. And as many of you guys know, I have a social anxiety that's really bad. And so I have to play like little Mario Party mini games in order just to like calm my anxiety. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to just like play the game with her. I'm like, okay, I want to like spot the differences. So I was just kind of going around the room of like, okay, well, so Jehovah's Witnesses can't have beards. The men don't wear earrings. The men don't have long hair. I think women only wear floral dresses. That one actually got her like busting out laughing because she was wearing a floral dress as well. And the half cardigan, whatever, half sweater thing. I don't know. It's like a modesty thing. But yeah, so I was just like mostly doing that while she was there. And then other people came up and just were like, hey, blah, blah, blah. My name's such and such. Everyone just wanted to know about my bracelets and nail polish. And they were we're just so happy you're here to be with us. And it was really funny, actually, how everyone had like the same approach. Oh, welcome. We're just so happy you're here. And I'm like, this is just how I am. So I was like, how can you be happy that I'm here if you don't know me? But I say it in a very, and I like laugh and like joke about it, but I'm like, you don't know who I am. Why are you happy I'm here? You have no idea who I am. It doesn't actually make any sense. But anyway, they got a kick out of it. So anyway, man, I'm digressing so much. It's hard to keep track. I did notice one thing that happened, which got me a little worried, but I'm like, well, we'll just have to sort of see how this plays out. The guy that I was worried about recognizing me, he came in and then went and talked to someone for a bit, looked over my direction, and then the person he talked to came over, and I'm thinking it was his wife. He never actually came and sat at his seat, so I wasn't able to get that for sure, and he was single when I knew him. So anyway, so she rocked up and started talking to me, and we were just like, then I was playing another game of, okay, who's the best dressed, who has the best shoes, who has the worst shoes, best hairdo, worst hairdo, different things like that, because it's distracting for me and helps me feel comfortable. And honestly, I think it was refreshing for some Jehovah's Witnesses to not like be worried and just to like sit there in the safe, hi Zizi, in a safe little bubble and just be like, oh, we can actually just sit around and laugh at people. Anyway, I know said I would do this podcast style and just have it go, but I really have to go to the bathroom. But anyway, there will be one cut here and hopefully not too many more going forward. Bathroom break handled. A little bit more on what happened before the program actually even started. There was one funny aspect of it, and that is all of the people that they have brought to the house to join in on the study or our discussions. It's hard to call it a study. It's more discussions, to be honest, because I refuse to do the question and answer format thing, and they just come and we have like an hour and a half, 2 hour long discussions repeatedly just about whatever, topic might come up. But he's brought a lot of different people over, and because of that, I recognize several of the people, and one of the people that I actually ended up sitting next to was someone that I thought really didn't like me at all, because I didn't like them all that much. I mean, it wasn't like a personal thing, but it was more the conviction of weak arguments that are so easily dismissed and disproven, and like the arrogance behind that. That's something that bothers me. It's like, well, we can sometimes at least agree that, well, we might not have good evidence for this and we just believe it on faith. And, most of the time Jehovah's Witnesses will sort of concede that, but this person never really, they kept saying like, well, no, this is the evidence, but I'm like, that's not evidence, and here's why. Anyway, I think I talked about that. I can't remember if I talked about that in one of the live streams, but anyway, so I ended up sitting next to him, and he was also the chairman for the whole event and everything. But yeah, as people came up and things, I was like, oh, hi, I think a couple people were like, they didn't recognize me, obviously, but when they, saw who I was, or, that I was talking to the person and his wife, then, maybe they came up. But anyway, enough about that before the pre-show. So during the whole thing, it starts with, everybody, be seated, and 30 seconds later, okay, everyone stand up, which I was trying to like get into a mindset of I've never been to a meeting before, just keep like reiterating that in my mind, like come at it like fresh with all of like the knowledge and stuff that you have, but come at everything with a very fresh perspective and then evaluate things as you go. So first off, they changed the songs. The songs are awful. The thing that woke me up was that people sing along to these songs and they look like zombies. That was one of the biggest things, like shock moments. And then I asked myself the question, wait, am I a zombie? And man, oh man, is that just depressing to see, especially when it comes to kids. Oh, I did want to at least mention that real briefly. The age of people that were at this one. Now, this obviously isn't, a scientific study or anything, but just based off of this, I think I'm still right that the Watchtower will not look anything remotely like it does right now in, 10 to 15, maybe 20 years. Because the age of people, everyone there, like 90% of the people there, were over 50, 55, 60. It was incredible how few people were my age or younger. it really blew my mind. I mean, it made up like maybe 5 to 10%. And if you think about that, going forward, those people that might be like 60, 70, 80, well, go forward 10, 20 years. If you removed all of them from the Jehovah's Witness pool, you wouldn't be left with very many people. And again, people that are, my age that might have kids were very few. So where is the next generation of witnesses going to come from? It's not coming from the preaching work. There's not that many people that are, in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So where's it going to come from? Nowhere is the answer, and Watchtower is going to diminish. But anyway, that's my personal hot take. People disagree. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, so yeah, the song went, and I was just singing along to it because why not? I didn't actually know the song because they changed them. Prayer, sit down, blah, blah, blah. During the actual talk. So the dude came back and sat next to me, and I basically just asked like random questions and made jokes about stuff. And I swear this guy was like in stitches half of the talk because I was just trying to find like funny, weird, goofy things that they were saying without any sort of like backing or scriptural basis. And I can't remember what exactly it was, but there was like 2 or 3 times when one of them was the cross. I was like, oh, so Jesus isn't on a cross. If anyone attended the memorial, you'll know they showed pictures during the program. And I keep saying program. It feels like a Jehovah's Witness word. Talk, program, during the hootenanny. We'll just use the word hootenanny. So during the hootenanny, they were playing the pictures, and I was like, oh, what about the cross? And he just like kind of whispered, oh, well, we don't really know if they used crosses back then or if it was a stake. So, we just kind of go with a stake, but, maybe it could go either way. And I was like, well, I guess we weren't there, so we couldn't know. And he was like, yeah, I guess we couldn't know, which just made me laugh because it's like, here you have an elder saying, well, it could have been a cross. It could have been a stake. We don't really know. But, we ex-Jehovah's Witnesses know that they are very hardcore. It was not a cross. These false Christians worshiping their cross. Like they lose their minds over the cross. And yet this guy's like, yeah, we don't really know. And we both looked at each other like, and I thought that was kind of good and like positive. Like, okay, well, at least we're acknowledging that these things aren't as they seem. And I can't remember the other one, but anyway, yeah, my main goal was just to try and not get triggered by it, but really just like sit back and be reflective about how their entire doctrine is just spaghetti held together with Elmer's glue, and it's just so, the foundations of it are so weak. It makes absolutely no sense. I did bring up the, I guess this was a little bit later, so I'll save that. But yeah, so I was bringing certain things up to him, just kind of making jokes about things that were weird. One of the best ones was one of the people that gave the prayers before the emblems. So he gave it before the bread, and he directed his prayer at Jesus. And I thought that was absolutely fascinating. Now, he opened his prayer clearly very nervous. So, not trying to dunk on someone because people get nervous speaking in front of a room full of people. Well, not as full as you might think, but I'll touch on that later. But, you get a little bit nervous. And he started off with saying, how happy we are to be here on this special day as the earth revolves around the moon. I mean, the sun revolves around the earth. I mean, the day of the Passover. Like, it was the worst opening to a prayer I had heard ever. Like, he could have said, we're gathered here today. And he was like, we're gathered here as the moon the earth revolves around the moon and the sun revolves around the moon and the earth revolves around the flat. It was so bad. But he directed his prayer and he kept saying, we're here to like recognize your sacrifice that you made and how these emblems, symbolize, what you have done for us, which is obviously, directed at Jesus. And I, had my eyes open the whole time, and I looked at the person, sitting next to me, and he was absolutely cracking up. He was just like the whole prayer. And so I immediately after the prayer, I was like, so I have a question. Like, why was he directing the prayer at Jesus? Is it because the other, like when you gave the opening prayer and the other guy did it for this was for the wine. And when the other guy did it for the bread, it was all directed at, God, Jehovah. And yet this one is directed at Jesus. Like, is it, everyone gets a little bit of love? It's like a Oprah Winfrey, like we pray to you and you get a prayer and you get a prayer. Like, do you guys pray to the saints or, how exactly does this work? And he was like, I know that might seem super confusing for someone that's new here, but no, he was just nervous. We pray to God and God alone, but we pray through Jesus. And, he was just, super nervous. And again, I don't try and press anything ever with Jehovah's Witnesses because I don't think it's productive, but at least mentioning it gets their sort of brain juices going. So anyway, I just, everything about the talk is just so like, what? There's no foundation for the anointed thing. There's no foundation for their paradise narrative, and using scriptures in Isaiah that were clearly pointing towards, the people in Babylon getting restored to Jerusalem, but using that as some future. It's all a bunch of nonsense. So anyway, I won't get you guys too bogged down with the biblical narratives. But yeah, everything wrapped up. And afterward, everyone did the love bombing thing. I'm going to have a little bit of coffee to activate my brain juices here. But yeah, everyone did the love bombing thing. So lots of people came up. First thing ever was the bracelets and the nail polish. I don't know why it's such a big deal. It's a color. Would it be the same if I wasn't wearing a white shirt? I don't know. It's just a color. Whatever. But yeah, I basically had the thought in my mind of, I knew everyone would ask, well, what did you think of the talk? Or what did you think of the hootenanny? What did you think of the hootenanny? And I was just trying to bring up one thing that was confusing. So with one person, it was when they read the scripture in Isaiah about they will build houses and have occupancy. I was like, so do Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they're going to be restored to Jerusalem then? Because like this is an old, Zionist teaching, that people would, these are scriptures that Zionists would point to about there being a restoration and there being two types of fulfillments. One in the past, that was after they were released from Babylon and were restored back to Jerusalem. And then people say, well, that was, the atypical or the antitypical or whatever the heck it is. And then this also applies to the past. So do you think that people will be restored? And they're like, well, no, that language is just figurative. So then the same answer. So who decides what language is literal and figurative? Because obviously it's not explicitly said. So for you to say, well, this applies as a literal thing and this applies as a figurative thing, there has to be someone, if all of you guys agree, because you couldn't get 100 Christians in a room and say, hey, what part of this is literal and what part of it is figurative, and them all agree on it. Like, that is just an absurd thing to even think would ever happen. So someone must be telling you what is. And it would be like, well, we get direction from the faithful slave, and then they just kind of go off and to that little region. And I'm like, okay, well, So someone is telling basically everyone what the doctrine is. Like someone dictates what the doctrine is to all of you guys. And that always makes Jehovah's Witnesses uncomfortable because they're like, well, no, I have my personal faith. I have my relationship with God. But the thing they don't understand is that they don't have a relationship. And yeah, shout out to all of my Christian homies that hang out and always comment and stuff. And I'm sorry, I know I can be offensive sometimes, but I try my best not to be. But all of you guys, you can sound off in the comments, but Jehovah's Witnesses take away people's spirituality. They don't allow them to be spiritual people. They don't allow you to have a relationship with God because they insert the governing body as the medium between God and humans. And I think that's totally cooked. Like, I'm not a believer myself, but if I was, the Jehovah's Witnesses would be even more offensive to me as a Christian than they would as an atheist. So it's really hard to get my head around. But that's one of the things that I like to try and do is, you know, bring up a specific point about them changing something between literal and figurative and then saying, who decides those things? Because someone has to. Did you come across that? Well, I mean, we were taught that. Well, taught that by who? Well, through God's organization that's led by Jesus. Okay, but Jesus doesn't talk to you. Like, no one's claiming they have visions or Jesus is actually, like, sitting around in, you know, Utah or something. So who, okay, well, the governing body. Oh, okay, so they're the ones that are dictating, you know, what is literal and what is figurative. And I personally think it's an effective way of like putting at least a chink in the armor and recognizing that the teachings are more man-made and they're coming from a human and not some sort of supernatural deity. But anyway, so that's like basically my mindset. And so every conversation I had with people, I know I'm not looking at the camera as much as I normally do. My eyes are wandering off. But anyway, doing that about the 144,000, that was one I did on a few different people. So I was like, okay, well, it's curious because, you know, you bring up this part in Revelation 14 and you say that the number, 144,000 is literal. But then if you're to take the number literally, then wouldn't you also have to say that they are virgins, that they are men, that they are Jews, that they have never told a lie before? And on one of the elders maybe it was the guy that gave the talk, but I was like, I remember from my Bible study, you guys saying that sometimes you guys make adjustments in your teachings. And he's like, yeah, sometimes we have to make adjustments. And I said, well, that doesn't actually fit into the narrative of the anointed, or however you guys refer to them, the faithful slave, as being, you know, blameless in their speech, or, you know, having no falsehood in their mouths. Because if they told a teaching that was wrong, that would necessarily mean there was falsehood. If it's not true, it's false. It's one of the... So how does that work? And he was absolutely bamboozled, had no idea what to say. I was like, well, you know, it's kind of complicated, and, you know, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms before, but, you know, maybe this isn't the right time or place to actually answer that question. So I was like, okay, well, you know, fair enough. I'm a pretty astute observer of things going on here, and I was just asking questions. You asked me, so anyway. So those are just some of like the general things that went on. But yeah, I would say overall, my biggest takeaway was I really feel for those that are going to meetings and wearing that figurative mask, because that is so difficult, but it's literally the only way you can survive that situation is to wear that mask. And I know sometimes people I see on social media, well, just don't go to the Kingdom Hall, and you just shouldn't do this, and you just shouldn't do that, and just leave, you know, you don't have to disassociate. And I know like that for certain people that might work, but for other people, no one operates in a vacuum. We all have such varying circumstances. There's not a one size fits all scenario. And some people have to go to meetings for a certain amount of time. They have to keep up the pretense. They have to wear the mask. And speaking out against it and making yourself isolated is horrible, because once you are outspoken, once you do come out as maybe having said something, or not being fully a witness, even if you're inactive, it is brutal. The shunning is awful. It makes you feel like sick. And is it just easier to wear a mask and be like, well, at least I have the knowledge and I'm just going to move forward on my terms? There's no one size fits all. There's no this is the right thing to do. But just know that if you have taken the time to evaluate your circumstances and you've really considered, what your options are and what's going to be the best option for not only you, but for your family, then, move forward confidently knowing that you've made that right decision. Oh man, I've ranted so long. My computer might have turned off, but hopefully my sound didn't go away. Anyway, this video is already way too long, but I just wanted to give some of my reflections and, what kind of happened at the memorial. I am going to be starting the streaming channel again. More news on that going forward. Just to give you guys some more updates, because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to keep up the Bible study just for my own mental, but I think I've done all the damage I can. But yeah, shout outs to anyone that went to the memorial and had to survive that, especially if you are someone that's been inactive and you're just going there and you experienced the soft shunning from people or your friends and family kind of ignoring you, but maybe some rando strangers just kind of coming up and being all love bomby. I know how that feels, and it's just completely like demoralizing. It just does not make you feel like a human being. And yeah, I hope maybe some of these stupid, silly little videos can be of at least a little bit of comfort to people that have to go and, experience all of that going forward. So yeah, anyway, this is Wally unedited, so a little bit silly of me. And yeah, I didn't have a script or anything, just was going to turn on the camera and talk for an hour. So there you go. Anyway, if you're still around, which probably no one is, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you next time. I think the next video should be the April broadcast, but I watched it and it was incredibly boring. I actually didn't watch the whole thing, but anyway, that should be the next video coming out, and then I will have a couple of interviews that I'm going to be releasing pretty soon. So I think we're going to actually be doing 1 to 2 interviews per month going forward, if we have guests and everything that want to come on and tell their story or whatever the case might be. So yeah, anyway, with all that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to smile. Oh, and hey, you better have a good-ass day.